Okay, hi everybody. I think we're going to get started now. On your tables are copies of the presentation, so you don't really have to pay too much attention to writing it all down. I thought what we would do is really to make this more of a chat, and the reason is there's details in the slides on each of the points. Naeem asked me to talk about what the most common mistakes are. And before I get into the slides, there are two real big ones from listening to Naeem's presentation. First of all, everything he said, it's spot on. The biggest thing I find when you're pitching a VC is, let's say I'm going to just pick on TiEcon that's at my table. He's a dentist, and he's now thinking of doing some software in dentistry. So he's going to be sitting presenting to a VC, and they're going to be asking questions. And so they're going to ask about, well, what about this startup that's in the dentistry business? Well, what if he has never heard of them? What do you think the VCs are going to think if he's sitting there presenting himself as a dentistry expert, and he knows the space, and they know a startup he doesn't? You're going to be faced with that a lot. So first recommendation is learn the industry, because the VCs sitting opposite you see over 1,000 business plans a year. That means they've probably seen 10,000 startups. It means they've probably seen 10 that are very similar to yours, 3 of which are in the market that you probably don't know about. So really do your homework, because if they know more about the industry than you do, you will not get funded. Second thing is if they ask a question you don't know the answer to, there's a really easy answer. I don't know, and I'll get back to you. Don't try and fake it. They're not stupid. They've seen a lot of companies. So don't pretend to know what you don't. This is Silicon Valley. Failure's okay, and saying I don't know is okay. Okay, so now let's get into the regular preso. First big problem is we have a really strange government in Washington, and do you have the legal right to work in the United States? If you don't, it's going to be pretty tough to get funded. If they're worried you're going to be deported the next day, they're not going to want to invest in you. So figure out how you're going to get your immigration status taken care of. And it's tough. The rules are gotten a lot worse. I do not support what's happening, but I don't control it. If you haven't heard of an O visa, that may be the one that you're going to need to fall back on. An O is a visa for people of extraordinary ability. It was designed for Nobel Prize winners, Olympic athletes, and that sort of thing. But if you've published a lot of papers, you have a PhD, when they Google search you, they get 500 hits of all these speaking engagements you've done. You've got a decent chance at an O visa if you can't get an H or any of the other kind. But figure out how you're going to do it. Now, you are allowed, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I'm on the wrong slide. Hang on. Let's try looking at this. There we go. If you look back, the way I did this is that each of the points we're going to talk about has a page in your packet you can go back and refer to later. I don't want to sit and read the slides while we're here. But you are allowed to come into the United States on a B visa. That's a business visa. Business visa doesn't let you work. It lets you explore the possibility of working. Just make sure whatever you do, don't do the wrong thing. If you do something wrong on the visa, you will be blacklisted and you will not be allowed into the United States for 7 years. Don't screw it up. If your visa is for 21 days, make sure you're gone by the 21 days. Don't even stay 1 day over. Oh, it doesn't matter, I'm 3 hours late. People get barred for that, so just be really careful. Legal entity. Naeem mentioned earlier Delaware Corporation, and somebody asked the question over here, did it need to be Delaware? And the answer is yes. So there are partnerships, there are sole proprietorships, there are limited liability companies, there are all kinds of cute stuff. VCs only want to invest in Delaware corporations. So if you're not going for VC funding, and you say, look, my family's wealthy, I have this very profitable business in Pakistan, and what I want to do is open up an office here, doesn't matter if you're Delaware, you're not getting funding. You can then optimize for income taxes and do other things. But if you want VC funding, you're a Delaware corporation. Not properly registering your entity. We've just set up a Delaware corporation. We're here in San Francisco, and guess what we didn't do? We didn't register in California, and we didn't register in San Francisco. The license, Raj, is alive and living in California right now. You have to register with 5 or 6 different entities, not just one. Don't just think, oh, I did Delaware, I'm finished. So make sure you find out whatever city you're in and you do all the rules in your city, because you're going to go get venture funding, you've pitched them, you're ready to close on a $10 million deal, and they find out you don't have a San Francisco business license. It gets really ugly, because then they say, well, what else did you do wrong? Oh, you don't understand how to do business, and all of a sudden that one narrow little mistake opens up and becomes a big problem, and you don't want the distraction. The word Naeem used is very important. You want them looking at your customers, your people, your product, the wonderful things you've done, and not get caught up in all the environmental garbage and the government registrations you didn't do and the payroll taxes you didn't file. Oh, I'm sorry, question. Okay, the question is, his CPA set him up as a California corporation instead of a Delaware corporation. Do you know why your CPA did that? He didn't give you a reason. If it's not too late, switch. The sooner you switch, the easier it is. It'll cost you maybe $1,000 to do the switch and $150 a year to belong to Delaware. It's well worth the $150.
Betty, could you explain why Delaware is preferred?
Okay, the question is, why is Delaware a good idea? Remember we talked about the license Raj? The part that's really different about the US isn't the license Raj, it's the fact that everybody sues everybody in the United States. Stormy Daniels is suing the president for defamation of character. You come to my house and you slip on the front steps as you're walking in, you're going to sue me. Everybody sues everybody. Delaware is decided, it's a tiny little state. I mean, it's, like 100th the size of California. It's got like a tiny population. Their biggest source of income is having companies pay them to be Delaware corporations. And what they do is they use that money to fund their court system. So if a New York company is doing business with a Texas company, do you want to use California law? Not really. Do you want to use Texas law? Not really. What everybody does is they use Delaware law. So for over 200 years, Delaware has specialized in corporate law, and they have a wonderful set of attorneys and judges that really understand corporations. So if you're going to sue or be sued, you want to do that in Delaware. That's why you want to be a Delaware corporation. But let me give you the real reason. It's what the VCs want to see. So remember, distraction, you want to look normal. You want to look like everybody else. You want to do things the way everybody else does it. And since everybody else is Delaware, even if it were a bad idea, you'd still want to be in Delaware. Because that way when the VCs look at you, they go, oh yeah, normal, normal, normal. Because they're going to, I'm sorry, I can't read your badge, but this gentleman's company here from California, they're going to go, why? Gee, he did something different. Different's bad. They want to check the box. Same distraction. Okay, did that answer the question? Okay, so inappropriate capital structure. Remember Naeem was talking about we're going to issue 10 million shares and we're going to give them to our founders and our startup people. Well, let's just say Naeem and I start a company together. Should we be 50-50? Should we be 60-40? How is it appropriate to do it? What happens if I'm going to pretend I'm an engineer, and I'm very good at programming, and he's our marketing and biz dev guy? Is 50-50 appropriate? What happens if it turns out I'm a really good programmer, but I can't scale to be a VP of engineering? I can't scale to be a CTO. We have to bring somebody in over me. All of a sudden, I own half the company and he owns half, and now I'm being demoted to like a worker bee engineer. Well, maybe I shouldn't have gotten half in the first place. So think about the capital structure, not just for today, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, what it's going to look like, and make sure you allocate the shares properly. Also figure out that when Naeem needs to fire me, how does he buy my stock back? How do we figure out now, while we're still friends and we all love each other, how do we figure out what's going to happen when one of us needs to leave the company? Do my shares vest over a 4-year time period? Do I sell them back at cost? I paid a penny a share. 2 years from now, is he going to buy my stock at a penny? I don't think so. But he's not going to have $10 million to buy them in cash. So think about that now, early on at the beginning. There's some things you can fix. You can fix almost anything. You can't fix doing the stock wrong. That one will come back and bite you. You can move from California to Delaware, that's fixable. Most of the stuff is fixable. It just costs more money later. It takes more time, and it distracts you from the VCs. Okay, anybody here already started a company and bought their stock, and it's a Delaware company? Got a couple? Did you file an 83B form with the IRS? Okay, his CPA took care of it. And what happens if your CPA forgot to send the form in? What happens if your CPA doesn't have the receipt from the IRS showing that they got it? I'm now going to want to invest in your company. I'm a VC. I want to write you a check for 10 million bucks, and you can't show me that form. What's going to happen? All hell breaks loose. So let me explain what an 83B is. Remember, I don't like our friends in Washington. I also don't like our tax administration. Don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger service telling you how it works. I don't write the laws. I'm buying my stock. I'm a founder in a company. I'm getting 1 million shares, and I'm paying $1 for my 1 million shares. No problem. Because of the fact that I'm planning ahead with the appropriate capitalization, my stock is going to vest over a 4-year time period. And what that means is at the end of 1 year, I get to keep the stock. And if Naeem fires me during that first year, I haven't vested any shares. He's going to buy back the entire 1 million shares because I haven't earned them. That's what vesting means. It's like an earning. If he fires me on month 13, I will have vested 13, divide by 48, because it's 4 years. I'll have vested 13/48 of my stock. So the IRS says, look, IRS, by the way, is the Internal Revenue Service. It's our tax entity here in the United States. The IRS says that each time the stock vests, I have to figure out what the stock is worth. Remember, I paid a penny. Oh, today it's worth $1. $1 a share minus a penny a share is 99 cents. And I just divested, say, 100,000 shares. Guess what the IRS wants right now? They want me to pay tax on $90,000. Next month, I have to pay tax on another $90,000. Oh, the next month, the stock's up to $2. Now I have to pay tax on $180,000. Oh, guess what? All I have is a piece of paper. It says I own some stock. I can't sell that. Where the heck am I going to come up with $1 million in income tax to pay the IRS? It's impossible. So the government did something right for a change. There's this form called an 83B. And if you file it with the IRS, it says, today, I just bought my stock. Today, I just paid $1. And if within 30 days, not 31 days, remember some months have 31, 30 days, I file this form with the IRS and it says, please tax all of my shares now. Don't do it a piece at a time, 1/48 a month. I don't want 48 little tax events. I want it all taxed today. Well, today I paid a penny. Today it's worth a penny. So a penny minus a penny is 0. So if you file the form, you don't pay any tax until you sell it. There's a question all the way in the back.
Is this actually filed when the shares are issued?
Yes, this must be filed within 30 days after the stock is issued. So I'm going to pick on this gentleman up here that has this California company. By the way, what's your name? Because I can't read it. Karthik. Okay, Karthik. So Karthik, I'm going to make up a story. Not only did he do a California company, but I'm going to pretend his attorney did not file the 83B form. He basically needs to close the company, dissolve the company, start a brand new company, and issue the stock and file the form within 30 days. This is one of the mistakes you cannot recover from. There's some extremely narrow ways in which you can fix this, but it's unlikely anybody in this room will qualify for that. You basically have to close the company down and start over again. Just 1 second. So the deal with the 83B is, if you have founder shares, you gotta do it. Don't trust your attorneys, don't trust anybody else. If your attorneys do it, get a copy. Have them give it to you. And make sure you get it within 15 days, not 30, because if they screw it up, you have time to mail another copy and get the copy there within 30 days. Okay, luckily the rules do not require the IRS receives it. The rules just require it's mailed. So if you have proof that Federal Express picked it up or it got to the post office, even if it never gets there, but you have the proof it was filed, you're safe. But your acquirer or your funder will demand to see copies of the 83Bs to prove that they don't have $1 million tax liability holding around. You had another question, sir. Yeah, the question the gentleman's asking is what happens if the shares aren't issued? It's generally extremely unlikely a company exists without the shares being issued. It's possible, but it's incredibly unlikely. And the reason is that the tax rules in the United States basically say the longer you own the shares, the less tax you pay. So most people, the day the company's incorporated, they issue the stock the very same day because they want the clock to start ticking. Because if you own the stock for 1 year, you get special treatment. And if you own it for 5 years, you get really special treatment. So most people want to issue the stock the same day it's incorporated or within a couple days, but not a couple years later. So I'd suggest, sir, if you haven't issued your stock already, do it to start the clock going. You're going to write a check for $10 or something. You can afford the $10. Okay? So not filing 83Bs. Okay, next one is labor laws. Oh, I'm sorry, question over on the right.
Are there any considerations with
Okay, the question the gentleman asked is what happens if we do a partnership instead of a C Corp? If you're never going to get venture funded, a partnership is fine. It's got some good tax advantages. The biggest advantage of a partnership is, let's pretend, remember the company that Naeem and I just created here, standing up here? What business are we in, by the way? We're going to do shoe repair. We're going to repair people's shoes. So our shoe repair business, we're going to be a partnership, 50-50. That way when he fires me, he has to buy my half. But we're 50-50. We're going to lose $1 million the first year. Okay, we're a partnership. Half that $1 million loss is mine. Half the $1 million loss is Naeem's. Guess what? I get to take that $1 million off my taxes. I get to say, here's what I made, minus $1 million. And the government will help fund my losses by allowing me to deduct my $1 million. So if you're going to lose money, wow, why isn't everybody a partnership the first couple years? And the reason is a VC won't touch a partnership with a 10,000-foot pole. You will guaranteed never get funded with a partnership. You might get funded with an S corporation, which is a special kind of corporation that's taxed like a partnership. But they're going to say the day you get funded, you change from an S to a C Corp, and that's a pain in the neck. So it's easier just to start off as a C Corp in the first place. But you could be a partnership, never get funded. You could be a S corporation and convert to a C. Did that answer the question? Okay. So labor laws. Remember, everybody sues everybody. Who's been watching in the newspapers what's going on with Uber and Lyft and the gig economy companies, where England just said, no, you're not really contractors, you're really employees. The US right now is on a big push, especially in California, to say everybody's an employee. There was a court decision that just came out this morning in California that I was reading while I was sitting here that's made a much tighter test, saying everybody's an employee unless you can prove they're not an employee. I think this is going to be a real problem for companies like Uber and Lyft. But here's the bottom line, where I'm going to pick on Karthik because I know his name. Karthik is now going to come help out our shoe repair business. And he's a brilliant programmer, and he's going to charge us $80 an hour, and he's going to do some programming. Thank you, Karthik. We got a problem. He comes to our office. He uses our computers. He comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning. He leaves at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and he sits right next to one of our employees. What do you think the government's going to say? Is he an employee or is he a consultant? I'll answer that. He's an employee. Oh, but we have a contract and it says you are a consultant and Karthik, you're going to pay your own taxes. Guess what happens? He goes running down to the labor board and he says, I'm really an employee. They screwed me. Guess what happens? He wins. We not only have to pay his salary, we have to pay penalties, interest, waiting time. And what do you think our VCs are going to say when they look and they say, what kind of shoddy people are we that we screwed up like this? Gee, what else did we do wrong? Why would they want to invest in people that don't understand the rules? So be very careful about the labor laws. Are you a consultant or an employee? Okay, so now we're going to pick on Karthik again. He's an employee now. It's all fixed, right? Everybody's happy. We're paying him $85,000 a year as our contract programmer. Isn't that great? He goes running down to the labor board and he says, I had to work weekends. They sent me SMSs at night. I had to answer emails at night. I worked 12 hours a day. I want overtime. And we say, but your offer letter says you're a salaried employee. You don't get paid by the hour. You don't get meal breaks. You don't get rest breaks. And he said, what is the court going to say? Guess what? He's an hourly employee. He gets meal breaks, and we have to pay penalties, interest. We're back to that again. So just be really careful. This will get you because you'll say, but he agreed. Doesn't matter what he agreed. He can go just run down to the government. Doesn't cost him a dime. He doesn't have to hire an attorney. He fills out a form. It doesn't even cost 50 cents to mail it in on the postage. It's free. Besides, we fired him. He's pretty mad at us. He's got nothing to do this afternoon but watch TV. So he's going to go down to the labor board and file a claim. Not only that, he's going to talk to his other 3 friends that work there and say, hey, come in with me, all 4 of us, let's sue them together. Welcome to the United States. Okay, next one. Oh, I'm sorry, question?
So what are the best practices to work with contractors? So where do you draw the line?
What's the best? The court case that came out this morning in California is called an ABC test. And this just happened this morning. There are 3 tests Number one is, do you, the company, have control over the person on how they do their job? That's the A test. The B test is it a job that would normally be done within the same company? I'll explain that in a minute. And number three is, has that person made an attempt to set up their own business? So let's look at me. I'm a consultant. I have a company. It's called Innovative CFO LLC. It's registered with the government. I file taxes. I have business cards. I do advertising. I pass the C test very easily. The B test is this a job that might normally be done within the company? So the example they gave in the court case is, I'm a department store, think of like Macy's or Nordstrom or Kmart or Kohl's, and a plumber comes in to fix the toilet. So the example the court gave is, Kohl's is not in the business of doing plumbing. So therefore, this plumber coming in, it's not a business that would normally be done by Kohl's. He isn't pricing the merchandise, he isn't helping them buy their clothing, he isn't helping them at the cash registers, he's doing the plumbing. The A test is control. So let's pretend Naeem hires me and he says, Betty, I want you to come in at 2 o'clock. I want you to do this between 2 and 2:30. And I don't like the way you did that spreadsheet. Could you please do it in a different way and change those columns around? I just failed the A test. So there's finally in California, after 30 years, a test for being a consultant. It's the brand new ABC test from this morning. Now let's go to federal law just for a minute, because you're not always going to be in California. And let's pretend that you set up a company in California, but you have 3 employees in Michigan. Well, remember, License Raj, each of the 50 states has its own rules. Guess what? There's a federal rule, and each of the 50 states has their own, and a lot of the cities have their own rules. You have to comply with all of those. Oops, I'm being given the hook here. We're going to skip this and go to a couple others because we're running out of time. Thank you for warning me. Not paying taxes on time. If you withhold money from employees on their payroll taxes, you have to pay it quickly, got to pay it on time, and you got to go pay the state of Delaware and California and everybody else. And the penalties are often more than the cost. In California, there's a form you have to file that's $25. The penalty for not filing it is $250. There's a $10,000 fine if you don't report your foreign bank accounts by June 30th. So if any of you are US taxpayers, you have until June 30th to file the form. It's called an FBAR form that says you have a signature on a non-US bank account, because they all think everybody's trying to hide money in Switzerland or someplace like that. Sales tax.
What's the form name?
The form actually doesn't have a name because you do it online. If you Google search on FBAR, the letter F, B-A-R, FBAR. So search on FBAR, it's $10,000 fine. Make sure you don't screw it up. Sales tax. California does not tax software, SaaS. That means if it's delivered like Amazon Web Services or Salesforce.com, it's not taxed. If I give you a CD and I give you a piece of something that's got the burn on, I even give you a USB memory stick with software, you have to pay tax. 26, new number. 26 states now charge tax on SaaS. So if I'm Salesforce.com and I'm selling to a customer in Arizona, I have to collect sales tax on the $1,000 a month that they pay. So just keep in mind, when you finally do start getting revenues and you've got a real product, you got to start collecting all your taxes. Here's a big one, guys. If you were asleep for the rest, wake up for this one. If you build it, they will come. I have a great idea. It's a wonderful product. I've built the greatest thing in the world. But it's, how does somebody wake up tomorrow morning and know that my product exists? How do they find me? It's called the discovery problem. It's really tough. If you have like a game in the App Store, how are people going to know about it? If you've built the best, we're going to pick on dental software. We have the best software for managing a dentist's office. How does some dentist in Kansas even know that the stuff exists, let alone find out about it? So think about it. Building the best product is not what wins. The best marketing and sales usually wins out over the product. But the number one mistake is running out of money. Everything else doesn't matter if you have no cash. So you've got to figure out how to stretch every dollar and make it last as long as possible to buy you the time to be able to finish your vision and execute on it. And I have 12 seconds left. Wow.